Tlingit Johan Gantutl'úk'x hati was yuqayqin wasaqtu yaqayaki qayuqatangidati jaqaqtuni khasku wan qanin satu yanik qaqash ta'asa awa hakhutu gudia mutusatin nana itх wan qanin Suzie it is clear to get away kingisti hanakhugut actually tesh achtua sagu ya diyuk atangi ayakhasa akhiya yidat yachakut ka ko ayekwati ya yidat ko achtua sagu we jukatin diyuk atangi ayawtusa akhi khasakutsu wan qanins tish aya hakat ugut achawe hastu yet aya ʼatudli.átk ye awa qoa haji yes yuhasqewtanen awa hashitzin hastu naqhasfu art ya shkalnik klein ye awa ha inchkautlenik ya shkalnik tachlakutsi atoy kash qanachtidi aya hastu ai qanachtidi yeti awa ha kingisti tauk eneditsu qanach ati hechwasaku qanach ati adach kwashasqutsi tiqo awe kuqitan akha koqitan ya yatatsu we ishkitan kwashwe qanachtidi adakhasul lagats enchak hastishkalniki aya ya deslin ke hawutien kwatkinsa tawaqtisi yaksha kwash 2019 aqa away kautushahit wishkalnik anyallahash qachukatin qayuqatangtsuk anki qa laustla igwaya Juan takat Johan ye awa adat yutuhtatan ya hayejini wasa atkakwane hastu itik ayagachtunaq ye awa achtwasaku yisaku ik akhahin kakhkanach awe qaqwash hastu tu kena kenen achawe has ausakun keguchtlatin hayuqatangi kalhachinaq ayagachtlsis yewa dat yutuhtatan yayagi ya ach khuni khana kawanik wishkalnik Gantutl'úk'x ya achlilk owa awshin awa waqachtashi ho awach aqawus ejietiege we ache itawagesiku equyawda hai kakaya kakshahiti aqahajiyek qotishkalni qawe ache Jakut achitsu hai awlatun qanak tekwashi awaweta yetaqaqash qachtashi a itkhaya wishkalnik achtuasaku wushuk ʼatudli.átk duyuk atangi dad qawishkalnik qasa atkakwane Watlhayejene qahaqustiyitin. Khosaku akho ayuhan qai letu. Achawe kesh ach akach de khait. Kesh ach akach wal khait wasa atkhone. Khosaku kitain atgachi a tayuq atangitin. Ya atki aya as the two dach aya keguchlitzin stakatayejene qahaqusti. Gwatkin sa aya with kesh wooch kokach tulskau. Dis woochin yejagach tuni. Yaha yuqatangida. Aqa aweqone kedain qutusti ayaha yuqatangitin. Wan qalins keshatinaqa otich aqut yuqatangi. Dis ha ayi. Aqa awe. Chua yawe hit klein. Ayi gachtunak. Gachtuqin. Nyawa hastu tuasagu. Ti aya. Washtakatuhan. Qahaye jini. Wash. Hanakhasu ata qa awe. Khasaku quwakan khasati. Haji yes. Yawa achtuasagu. Kayet ayahatuye ti. A joy yin kachanikiata. Kliat geawe danawak the yuchatangi ayachoach. Adat to the ton. Wasaha in a kawanik. Kadat etinach sahayati. Hask achwus data tinach sahayati we Tlingit Nov. Ye awake a din. Kunach da kasa kawanik. Datsa. Yew achtu keinak ein yin the kat yuhan. Tas kleika aya kleinachka ushetish. Wooch in koa. Chu oya. Woochin gachtucha. We yak klein. Shkatecha na kawanik yak klein yachawe ha yukatangi. Yewa yuhan. Gunchish. Yukatanka gate was a guitli higuk. Got clake we clear the high Gantutl'úk'x. Okay. Yeah, do a. We chat a cook a quantity we link was Tlingit Nov was Tlingit Nov was the yagen it was a good to kakitlatini a ati.
Look, ha, says ʼatudli. Tkatin ayachat. Tasting shaw. Cookitan shaw. Shaydi hen achoni yak. Jig yachat kushki dachawe achtilku. Yachat akanijin. Illis chatasa ach ijel. Tlelushke. On the way to Gukati ijig. Chagri ye awe atin. Awe tlede hin ach inshkesh kamlinik. Shark awe you a shark. Would you ish gan vegan awe at an. Vegan awe you a klachud you. Chehakatahawata so. With atkit uahi. Kogach. Ye kakuke. Ye kuwat. Awe gantu. Awe aye na teaching. With tlugach. Awe do ish ye yamsika. Islach ej sik klesuske. Jo on the way de ej qani with tlugach. Ja. Achawe kles to ich usqin. He wat tlugach aka iti tlemasa ye kewe gantu kleyuti. Ahoy aham sishat. Masak sheke ko qani yutuati. Achawe to qattu ye amsini. Nes amsinuk. Tewet nataka. Wudu atki sari ayeti. Sik ye kakuke. Awe akaye awa uwut. Tje awa Du klaart awa hoog. Hakote sik at kakayhage yodaka. Awe te do tlachande wukun. Yan atu khai awe te wudu rumi. We are teegje. Ze are de wukun. Dash zo wat ikka ʼatudli.átk wat ook. Du te zeggen du toeke uwe gichtso. Je kan niet hier ook ouwe wat liet ik. Je niet ouwe snoegen ga ouwe. Zet klokken je uwe klok. Wat je als tien. Ja, jamsli jeets. Ja, je na de ouwe. Ach, is je getaan. Kain, tis ach jeets. Maar sak sigu kwati you wati. Kech akoda khawa kono ye u wat. Wet ook kahawek ye klike. Wet aka awe awa you. Ye kakuke wet aka. Tade awe nakuch. Tlugach. Akata at khanich aka. Awe du tla haku at iha you was kai. Awe tle adine kuch. Tayade kattu de ye down any to at ha. Dayan it ha kwe du tla you was kai. You was carnage. You. Maka asawaya inani tlak at ihani juadaka. Kaste ashu awe with look is to cut to the year dawning. Klewe artechia at we goody awe. Claim to at na teach. Our adi yakligeni. Awe yana wadi with look. Tumo at ha to washigu. Kahwa ye kakutlagi we. Klewet aka. Marsha do a shock with Matt. Don't Wet aka gach. Awe akinaye and outrage. Wet look. Awe kahidi you awe yan ʼatudli you hit yat ayat asu kayatu atu hit Ja, awe has de ai. Te you awe. Has am leeg. Wooch in je daar de neen. Chago je te kat at. Awe anes wukudi. Wetu at khai. Tesa yak yakuke. We hit khu awe. Ta I je daar de neen. Quite clean you. We at kutu. Akawe ayan dus in. Ta I. Awe tlat ki tude wugude wet ook. Teweka ta I. Kunach sakshegi amsiku. Tlea a katakawe achke wooch. Tlea little hole aye wani. Tlach awe tlani jini wet ook. Jeka kuke. Awe klede hin awe shawat shantas gut at kushma sawayan anin ach ta I. Klesie ucha chaun awe atade yakan na den kushma ko asawayati yodaka. Hatayi haki yodaka dayi haki. Kwasati awe wooch at awe anach ye yanalin. At awe wakpatse you amsini. Dashitu atayi ye kakuge. At wooch. Atunach awe wet ook a the cutway I hit a hole you were good. Clay yan atu high yan au what do I want to say? Yan atu lie yan au lie with I how to you to do next day na good. Akachawa shawat. What did ye or yak dachnanin? Dachnach. Our do charge our ye our kate. Makha sawa eati. My sawa it lie ye dachund again you darker. Clash massa. A took. A cool heat tin awe aya wet ook gekleen. Okay, de hin awe yesu de klaar. Ja, mashaka. Naku you itlak hande naku. Du iti de shiyo daka. Awa heat hutsu. Maha sakshegi yeti. With water te ya tesa yach wat uti. Achawa te kawa do clark hande. Te atwa good away. Yes, arnes were good with do clark. Wakat with arkatin. Okay, with you da sakshege amsitin yard. Te you our amsini. Te ye our snee tin our just well walk. Clean our at cut at with look. How we do hochande good. Haku go what at is can you darker. Was in our years were to hit who yas not. And the way they what would do it has seek. Gushita sawa ye aya o. Gushita sawa ye asya o. Tlako I tan genich wadudun ātk. Agata Yayaki awe ade khagu dasacho khati luk khotlen awe de khaniyeti ash shaki achkiwe achta khich atlakin de yanani achawe ye atyati yodadaka Ruko was to Clark Haneyeti. Akasa Tleuyash Kahadi Yahyanani. Adi would look Hadayu to Tangi. Ahawe Yeshu Wika. How they call spear? Spear.
Spear.
Taka? Klakas. Away all waka. Klakas has to klakas is tin. Away ta Iron was in ye. Away. You would do Ginny, what do you away a kina you, wetag altin, atasnak. Tawa handa yan at look one, what a chalk at litin was you dadoka, woosh dadoka. Away away would do a jack. Away shawat, away shinugu. With look, Tlekushe Ariana ye. I die you to a tank. Ho, you do. Masak Shaggy at Dardone. A slache at Woodlook you to a day. Aya Akwe day at Woodlook. Tayan ye, yan would do joggy away the 100 hour at. My sawing jiki you dadoka. Hato Tessa hote. Away adi jiki di. Kostayach, you kayakaho. Achtawashi Passache with the snee, I yes. You two, just you one hour, just the cut at you see cool. Ach yadi awe yeti and wait at awe yin jack te ya singit yin jack yak yeti. A hat to pass at to wash go ye would do snee. Ne awe to the kayak. Arasigi ye would look to work on clean aim to Ginny. I thought I would do a kid to do a cage. I will come to Chikan. Acha in a company, yes, yeah, Kasnik. Claes Dasa ach to jail. You had a con. I eat. Just a catuhan ach lag has a shatke has a key has in a company with. Wenig. But Pascha.
Ja, kijk.
You got Katan, each day you do New Ye Sigat, you do a sack, Takokan, Hitchy, Sigat. Shawat Naxatin, ye to side, she Sigat. I discan, you at take at Tlingit coach, Kitty, Lut Kahat in that age. A hot attack, Kanach at take at Tlingit. I want to say you, Gantutl'úk'x, يا ناخستي يسك تتاج إيت ساعة كنت نشكي خيا خختيان تكوتي أيا شتليو كان آكات خد تنوتشيه أي أخيان نكوت يوتلوك'x شتليو كان خاك خوختو أيا وشت شتليو كيجاتي أو سنوك تعني لوكوت وانا نيسيا يا تطلع أخي أسا يا تطلع أخينا أيك ʼatudli.átk تسقي كيا شياك قنو أنا قوكت قنو كوي ʼatudli.átk نوش تسوى كيا شياك قنو دويا كسلي كونكي شياك قنو ʼatudli.átk شيا أي تتاتش قي ووتشي شيا يقاكاوني يداسكشي تخزوكو يووتشي تتاتش تتاتات توشتي أيكلي لأنك نكوتش ʼatudli كوتخ نشوكوتي tla'atis وان أخني قنوك تشكتلكينخ تتياك غوج السو شياك قنو تسياك ويا شياك قنو تيا كسلي كونكي شياك قنو وانا نيسيا تتاتش تتكاخ كيشو كوشيتيا تتكاهاتي لا سيا آيا أتكن أي تتاتش تتويشتت آوكوت بان تكاسيا يوهاغتي قوة أخي ووز تاسويو أخياتكو أيا تلاقيش تتعوكوت يهايتي خايو تكاسيك يتخاو تليخكي أو سواتيو تدويش أكاكن دوكوتسو فيش واساس قووقا وانا نيسيا تليو آنتاي خياكنا إين تليا قاعد خاوية خياغنا سكت تليا تنيت أخلاق شيخ إن كلاني كنوش أخلاق شتخيش تليا تنيت خياكنا سكت شو تديتو قد إيخ ياندين يا أتنني يو أيخ إن أكلاني كوش أخلاقش أيتيس أتدانخ توني يا أتكن تديو عن تيخ يا كنائين وانني سيا أدات آوقي يوت أدات أقاقي أيتلقت شاقت ستوهي شتليو أديو ونوتوتسني أستاشيني واتيخي سيا تاقت ليخ يودوتليخ تخكدين يخيتليخ يتليخ ليك هودوتسكنت تليغتيخ يا تليمو يا أستاشيق قصتي يغندوسني استكتيت يغندوسني يا أشكاخت جقت أيتلي يودوتسقا يا شاتك كوأ دقيت نيس يودوات دقيت نيس كودي سيوم هيتي أيتلي آتي وكوت يشاتك Zaktakis. At een gawat hini takin at skit. Ja, atken. Hini takin at skit. At hini takut skit etinaya. Lakachtak awaki. Kayu ayayi kan tak. Zaktakis gik ayat ash ulach. Die siqik khasi. Leo naqhit shushatik. Ye kan takya saqaltin. Die siyak khasi. Leo ye gan naqhit. Yan chaq takat you an iqiya. Qatliya nashlu qiya khati we aqyan chaqya. Du ikhi. Atiya khayt asu. Du kusle kun khasi. Leo naqhit shushatik. Wana ni saya teki shikawa shi. Skočky nachakuta na navis nachakuta skočky nachachu Ya shikhataya ya nakut ya shatka. De skochki nakhachu. Naskatu shoya yati ya shit a deich qaachsku. Deich qaachwa ach. Jeja yachwasku. De skochki nakhachu. Skočky nachakuta na navis nachakuta Leo doodchak Leo ʼatudli.átk Iqaqhu doshi Tlingit yashatik. It's a good. A kachsa aya. Andach June. Ka andach teen. Yat look kachsa aya. Shayauta a kachsa. Aya saqe. Kaya shwak katnik. Ka sayak. Ka yakoslikon. Yat look kach. Sakoya ye yakukwe. Andach teen. Andach June. Ye yakukwe yat look kachsa. Ahoot aya. It's a dexkui aya. Aya kachnik. Stakat. Now.
Wasayit wooch that with ashkalnik, which shukach to us a guye sakai. Kunchi showe shkuyel. Ya who away you would ne a dot where hayukatangi dot they wish kanachu to daati. Akaya jokatin ka anyasahash ha inch kautlinik ka ha inyuke watan so gwachakuta. Kathatse wok Aka yilt uchtla kadene kaushahit dasayuk ewatan ya chukatin. Khasaku tlidzie we yejene. Still kakhatetie konach. A ETA an shawatke achjita awati yushilk yukatangi. Kash kaudujahid kha'a we Tlingit Nov inach yekukwati kha'a Gudach o'i wisgallnig. Chwasagw has wisgallnig I choach tywasagw tysagw. Was allet sy'n ai allen gitgallnig I. We jagwyd ani, jagwyd gaw. Jydach nach yw has sgawdlenigyn. Ja, tan, a deislin. Ye oe jago tysagw. Llycat ye chaya. Ya ana atjin. Wan qanins wushtachas yaw sadaq. Yaltakatwe nach sati Atunach oe halling gitch sati ayagach tusaku. Wasa atwune. Wasa hastu kakawa Yewe adati tuchta tanyayagi. Qanach wasagu. Ya halling git yukatangi tunach aya wushu ʼatudli.átk. Qa halling git yukatangi tin. Qa Gantutl'úk'x. Ye away Johan, Gunilchish. Adusa yukakwatan.
Tlingit Nov.
Weish Kalnik, Chudachnach, Chagudach, Qanach Tidi, Has Uahin, Katakunidi. Quashchakut Atsa, Hechasaka. Tuck on Koa, Wudizatin, Gas, Akaye Wutin, Qanach Tidi Gazi, Yai hit yig, We Gantutl'úk'x. Koa, you has Ayasak, Chudachnach Ye away, Kajistu Achtrawe Akawat Ak, Wait up has the gas ear kade, Kech a gas, Kagwashwe Shawat, Echasaku was a do saku, Gwasha in Scotlini Gadat, Dachasai puts a tea with a dach on dach June, Ka on dach teen. Ye away. Ya Jaguta gas, ya hit yig. Tag Quash was that do a suck Cotis, Quash you do a suck. A Kusaka Kwan. A Katkatseo, a Kate he no Hankatinik. Shingitchkatniki. Ka take a Tlekwashi, ka take a Kach dashi, Weshkashnikadach. Ego ginki chakut ye te kwa a de has Scotlini, ye ka a de has our she. Okay.
Sitting away the gas yai hit
Het kadene kwa
how to say it Tlingit Nov got to touch them the gas and the yai hit all the coon of them
Kajistu achchaka Qush ho a cowage up. We clean co a tlake. Jakut ka a couch a hit. See you clean, what you do so good. Just like hawk in a hayach. See you clean. Yes, yeti do in you the tan that they cut just to ʼatudli.átk. Ye o G to say away ka yes to ʼatudli. Ye o at that you took the tan gwash ye yak ya ach tun the tan ye ti. Ka atlein Tlingit Nov aya we dachte sego at telle ayach uti gos kia ako owe khunich hileyech. Ye o at that you took the tan so at ya ne. Ka gos utusaku dat at soe Tlingit Kosti. Kachakut da dachte sego at kunachas aushagug at dehas kosti ye. Wooch goed aya ohan Tlingadani kuk. Kish hayet ich haskuch sa teko a. Jawasa aya has to sakhan. Got kish ayachoti katua a. Keutusawati. Wijakut a. Ye away yashkashni kutusatin do yedechusatien witluk. Ako a kish ayach uti. Agit wutzagit. Adeye ausaniya. Kayat atsu. Wishkashni kutusaku. Kish ayachuti. Nikdeen ayadai kach. We dachte sego at teen. Uchpieke kwati hakosti. Ajoe we kach da shiikutzati. Kledi hinse wishkashni kaya. Cree has dishkashniki o kuya da hai has outliach an. Kledi hinoe we kleka in ag katla ka ish ka dachnach a has du sick has. Wooch in aya has kuwa u. Slidzi aya has du kosti talk. Talk o e talk konach slidzi. Ay dat aeg ging slidzi. Ye awe tsagi di khu has na atchin. Ya qata tin awe tsagi di awe has out zakat. We has to ish atwu good jakut yede. Gwash an de wu good. Nashe ye awe we an. Ukaya kwa u we dat tinach sahayati. Tlinixileo saknin ai dasa. Aka away we dachnach a we sick. We ustak hiyan. Tsagi di kata aya ke has awayik. Tsagi di dewuna has awsatin. Ashatchi a de tutle ishan awe adat. Ishan tsagi di. Ishan. Aka away just janak wekata. Kesh atachawe awsata. Ye awe at gate with the git. Ye awe Tlingit and the tani gwash go khan ito asaku gwash zisk gwash tsagidi. Akitloon gwash akisqat. Hastu de sego ejitas awati. Kesh has to kesh ayach uti gwash kudach itulla ishani adat. Wush de seg and ayat de sego. Ye awe hakusti. Ye awa at yaw ne, ye awa at dat you took the time. Agawe, ne chaswo art, with the gate de ko art just hin taki tea. Una it's a gate. Has the ish aya nail or good. Ya, you are on dach aya ai. One and is so a ko art ayuk. Nick to cut to a good there has the ish. Masawa Nick. Just uta. Just utage aya. Just natage I do. Do has the ish. The class the cut at the car up. Knock out the year. Suzie. Just uski at we dance a tin. At has our dust. We kakak. Da. Sin. Atasa has out a. Has a car up. Has our car. Yeah, away. Kundi hinsa. Wait, I acheti. Kun yaki sakshawe. I acheti away has to ish. Has to clark nach adat. The toot will he. Aus the teen did the dick ayawe good kunach. Kone ayake na kid. Kunach ye gay. Kane what aya did the dick. Asa atka kone. Aka away. Ye our June. Meshatchi Ha, tsakiti, the toasaku. Hinta dach ayayeo, yeoxene. Dewe a data ya our June. Kelzigit. Kick. Haku. Yauk yicked away with Zaki de Kahas Wukuch. Weka has to claw. Aus the crew data tinach sayati. A good shedich kakut she our Nik atuyeti. Shitatin ach our hash. Kakao hash awe. A kawshtache ausene. Just to gin tin. Ach aya ausenuk with shishik a nik. Ditlich adach. What chikle awe. The sick has K has our yik. A kata. Eo ka. At the Hanna utsagiti. Utusaku. Hajiti ti. Ikaseku. Kajis jutunak. Kashayak uti. Due to Sakuoi Detka. Ye away. Do da it away. Klagu. Just hin a tate ko aye has ausanuk. Kasachantin. Ne shasu koch and ne shasu gu. Chika aya ne shasu wat. Do ish kelzigit. Do clark ko a. We shishik a nig. We itch a 2 day ausane. A tate to the ton. Gwash an kate kakwa good ka kanagu. Do wakshi kaya kakosine yata. Akawe a dat to the ton. Like kakach tosh guyata kosti. A joy. We stuk a 2 day. A kausaha. Ach a kausagan. Gwash a joy hasayawat lak. It's a gidi da it. Kawini kutlain. Ye awe khosatin. Weshkashnik. Hastushkashnik. Ye aya. Ye achtuasagu. Ye inchkachlani. Gilin. Gitrinach. Gilkakrinach aya khosatin. Wakoyaw da hai. Gash 1996. He khosaka. Ye kahawe yohan gilchish. Das hat so. Tlingit Nov hege.
Who was the second speaker? Because I can't see who was the second speaker.
Oh, Suzie. Kakwatu.
Lillian?
Lillian Dem.
Southern speaker.
Yeah, Shawak.
Beautiful.
Yeah, ʼatudli.átk. ʼatudli.átk. We on Shawatki, Sarah Demerton. Tlingit. Echwasa kukuni naksakut zitiqoa. Mahenya kuu. Adusa ausaku. Hasu yukatangi. Wehenya Koanechyati.
There was a new word, ʼilkahadi. Did you hear that one?
Yakwasa?
ʼilkahadi.
Oh, ʼilkahadi.
Isn't that being crazy? Word to me, I liked it.
Okay. That kahadi could be a cover in some places too. Like I know in the story they said she put a mat over that so no one would see it.
Second speaker.
Sheesh.
Wedacha skalníktach.
Zukakwasa ach. Kakwa aka ya kakshikit. Tlingit Nov. Kahadiga.
That's fresh coffee. Fresh coffee too.
Okay. Sheesh Yuhan. Gosh. Nasjan katka kitchen when it's uyech. Elwasaka kwati tlechak enach ushuk agachtilati. Das
Titla yechat wuslitish away takitin du skalnigi kadu eight chosa achi.
goy Juan. Khasuku. Wasa esakhan. Ka wasa yishandin hakawashu. Chikla hanakaswa ati. Atlen ad deslin dach. Knachawe we Tlingit Nov. Hanakaswa at. Yewa dati tuchtatansu. Wasa tukwane. Yewa just a dati tuchtatan. Hast du itik aya gachtu nach. Just kagachtu ak. Yewa atjawe katu ak. Just Tlingit Nov. ʼatudli.átk. Atina chayeti. Hatu yeti wechlitsin. Ka yukatunk. Llall ach ikell chedlik. Atchitla yechi ha yukatungi. Hellwasaka kwatiyag. Oya has to jiqay hayati away that. Yat aya. Gosh ayis. Yende. Has hanasninen. Ye away. Yende shani ha yanwat. Has our school and was at Kukwane. Yaha yukatangi hakosti. A joy hain ye has juwane. Yewe. Achtandetani ye yeti. Joya just has to yukatangi tin ye jitune. Qisakhan has to jichtu tinuch. And joy has to kakwan ish. Shakshani. Keuchne. Kengese. Shetihini shagun. Ya has to yukatangi. Kuchtekenas aya hakinach. Kashes at aya khosaku. Kashidzi. Hajich. Joya koa. Saatihin. A kuk aya wutu. Utakin. Yata. Ye wet ark. What has ours hausaku. Kushagao aya ye kwati. Has to da it has to wasuku kunachlitzin. Ya yidat hatuasaku hatandetani aya kikachlitzini. Ye awa a joka e gachtulatu. Kawan kanins. Just slingit renach yucha gachtusla art. Khosaku klitzi. An kanins joya wudutlitiki at awe haqe kahat tlaqai. Helfasak kwati koa. Jachashuko at awe wakosakhan du jich du a jich awati away with Joya wayan watk. Hajihas awati so. Has to yukatangitin. Has to tundatani. Yakach yitlaq. Shtakat Johan. Yakach yitlaq.
Gantutl'úk'x du sta chukati ka du yukatangitsu ka Lillian Demert so ha wili tuish kunach du jies chukati yak du yejene yeftuchtla kaushichet gulchish. It was really good to hear those stories, and I just remember what a special time that was, that language thing just before Christmas a few years ago, how dark it was, and it was warm, and I really hope we can do it again, you know, when this pandemic stuff is all over. Look forward to being together with all of you. Sheesh.
Sheesh. Chatsuach tuasaku. Okay, away. Kek itikak wujin hawustien. Nakatse kwal wegao kwal kutan. Khawaqi atude aya outlaqain. Oh, kan sheesh. Okay, we did the first hour in Tlingit, so I'll lift the curtain. I can speak English now. Sheesh. Thoughts, reflections, ideas. questions?
Gunalchish iyuqatangi qa gunalchish weshkasnik ʼatudli.átk gu.
Okay.
That on Gantutl'úk'x.
I could barely hear you.
Oh, how about now? Is that better?
Chayikukink.
How about that? Can you hear me now?
A little bit. We gotta call that Verizon guy though. From
Yeah.
those commercials. Oh, there you are.
Yeah. Gantutl'úk'x, his name I've heard from Herb Bradley. I listened to a lot of his recordings just so I can, talk with my kids about their clan, people from their clan, and he mentioned Gantutl'úk'x, that was his name, passed down, and he's the one that gave like Steve Brown when they adopted him that name.
Oh, okay.
But Gantutl'úk'x, is that what Yechiadi?
Oh, Yechiadi said he thinks it's ʼatudli.átk, which from the language perspective would make a lot of sense. And it would also make sense that it would contract, names contract all the time. But yeah, he did carvings down in Wrangell, a lot of the shake stuff up in Tlingit Nov, those house posts in the whale house. One of them is the woodworm, the mosquito, and Kotis or Kotis. Like I can never remember how. One elder told me that the name of the Khisakhawan, I think it was Kotis. And then someone else painted the screen. Yeah.
Yeah, it was a couple different artists, I think, after, because Gantutl'úk'x, when he did them, it was like 1700s.
Yeah.
And
Is that a
Steve
Kickstarter
was
name?
telling me, Steve was telling me on the way from Gantutl'úk'x to Tlingit, he carved little model ones from Duk on the way up there, what he wanted them to look like.
Oh, okay.
Should be something I don't know if they ever exist or.
Yeah, I know the Burke Museum has a little oil box that he did that's a killer whale. It's pretty fantastic. Okay. So I was thinking for Wednesday, we'll try a couple of things. I got this little box of, they might be work for conversation prompts. We'll see how it works. But I'd also like you to be ready to just say something you wish you knew how to do. So we've done a number of different like sort of work on some things, kind of prompts. And I think we did like explaining how to do something, and now just sort of say, and however many sentences you want to bring, like just say something you wish you knew how to do. Okay, any other thoughts or questions?
I was just going to ask, something I wish I knew how to do was downhill skiing, but it reminds me of that story from Tlingit when he was talking about trying to learn Tlingit, and I can't remember it exactly, but it was like downhill skiing out of control or something. Do you remember that? Or?
Just vaguely, yeah. We were at something and he was talking about that.
Just kind of letting loose and kind of heading down the hill.
That's funny. I knew how to ski when I was probably 17, 18, I was pretty good. Or maybe 16, then my foot got run over by a car. But we were in Vancouver, and we took our kids skiing last winter. And so we did this whole, like, we got them lessons and stuff, and then we went, and I went up on the mountain, and we skied for, I think, 4 days. It was really fun. And yeah, there was one time I was looking at a hill, and I was just kept staring at it, thinking, I don't know, I was trying to map it and then think about it, and I was like, I think I just gotta go. And then and I was fine, but yeah, it was pretty, I could see it being like that, where it's like, you're just sitting right on the ledge for a long time. You're gonna make some of the lane, and then sometimes you just gotta, because no one's gonna push you off the hill. You know, you just gotta take that leap. But we could do the bunny hill, we could do the other things. So.
Yeah, I remember those stories of King Gestis. He was saying, don't do any more snowplow.
Okay.
So based on what they taught my kids, no pizza, just French fries. No pizza, just French fries. Okay. So there's quite a few recordings. If anybody wants to work on some of the things, like I'm trying to, I know Jacques has some, and we can look at some in here as well. One of the things I was thinking about with this, and just thinking about working with, some of us have worked with Elan before, some of us work with it all the time. I think we've touched on it a couple times in here. So I know one of the things that's good as far as a workflow is sort of going through and finding these areas. And like we can go here to where it switches over to the other speaker. So I might start here and, oh, let me see, can you guys hear this? Did I leave that thing switched? So then, you know, you're gonna write what you think you're hearing. And then you'll write like maybe a translation. And so one of the things is you might sort of start by selecting here and just sort of getting the audio and then listening to it. Maybe. I'll have to listen to it. But so like you go through and you listen to it, you can also slow it way down. I can build these Elan files and send them your way if you're looking for something to work on. But one of the things to sort of get the file ready so it can be turned into subtitles is when you think you got it, and like when you've worked on it and you're pretty sure that you've got it in pretty good shape, is you go through and you drag this all the way over to the next one so that there's not a lot of gaps in between them. That way the subtitle stays on the screen until the next one comes on. So that's a pretty good sort of step to take. Then usually we'll have one tier for English or for Tlingit, one tier for English. And then sometimes there's gloss and notes and stuff, like if you want to sort of pull it apart. But then sometimes it's helpful just to have a tier. If you're doing that stuff, that's fine. But I think it's good to have some tier as well where you can just put like, I think, I don't know, this is a guess, or, you know, I would tend to just go through, I know if you're trying to capture sort of the language data, you might leave your false starts in there, but I tend to go in and just remove them just to sort of get it ready for publishing, I guess. But then, you know, that it depends if they sort of say it and then there's a long pause and then they say it again. I usually keep that on there. But if I see like they started, but then they sort of started over and said the exact same thing right away, which I do all the time, I would probably just write it out. So, but those are decisions you'll make. And then some speakers are just more difficult than others. Just, you know, this particular story, that the pacing was really good. That she was really clear. There wasn't, you know, like somebody's phone. I remember like when that phone went off, I was just like fire coming out of my eyes and just a little frustrated. But those things happen, you know. And I try to just have people cough. They can't help that. But some of them, it's just right, you know, in these just critical moments. One time I had these 3 speakers, I think, and then we were recording in a little place in Carcross, and somebody walked in with like really like cowboy boots on wooden floors, and it was just like ka-clump, ka-clump. I was just like, come on, you know, but you can't control the environment all the time, so you just got to go with what you got. But if you are recording someone, just make sure you can cut as much background noise as possible. I remember Nora telling a story about working with David and Ida Kadashan, and how when she first started going around recording, people would tease her, and they didn't want to be recorded, and they called her like a beatnik. And she said towards the end, like Ida called her and said, your uncle's dying. He wants to be recorded by you one last time. And so the tragedy of it was she went over, she said she just grabbed a recorder and just jumped on a plane, went to Huna. And they had to send her clothes and stuff later, you know. But they didn't turn the television off, and it was so loud. And same with some of the recordings with the Marx family. It's just the TV was probably just always on, right? And it's tough. It's tough, you know, like when I would work with George, I'd have to go tell his wife sometimes, like, could you keep it down? We're recording. And it's awkward because you're trying to tell someone to, sometimes in their own house, to just be quiet. But, you know, just do what you can to try and capture what you can. But, you know, luckily that one was a really good quality. So ʼatudli.átk worked on the Elan file for this one, did a fabulous job. Suzie reached out and just asked if I could put the subtitles up on YouTube. So I was like, oh, we should look at that. And so Suzie had also done the one on the Kushtaka song that Anya Shahash told us. So I put that one up too. So that one's really fun. But just trying to get subtitles for all of these. And then I know Chuck has to get like 1 million more hours of transcription and translation. And this is good work. I think it puts you in this middle area between, you got to write down the Tlingit, what you're hearing, you got to translate it. And it is really good for advanced speakers to do. And then it gives us this final product where people can, you know, like part of me, I like the subtitles there. I sometimes worry that people get a little bit relaxed on listening critically to the Tlingit, but I just have faith that those who are you know, grinding on the language and trying to really get there are going back to it so that you can turn the subtitles off and stuff. And so it was really neat because watching with the subtitles on, and we haven't transcribed the second part, but you could still, I think you catch a lot more because you've listened to it and read it the first time, and it's not told the same way, but there's a bunch of stuff that just hits, I think, just a little easier.
Kune, I like what you and Alice mentioned, to work in Times New Roman, or because I notice nicotines that I did, the back G's didn't come through in the default script. So I'll try to change that.
Yeah, they get a little lost, and the subtitle thing, it's not totally controllable on YouTube. You can get in there as on the player side and change the fonts. That might help. If you're making some kind of film out of it and you want to burn the fonts onto the screen, there's a program called iSkysoft Media something. I'll look for it. It's kind of a cool program. The annoying part is that they're going to try and get you to buy like 1 million different other things with it. But it's called Video Converter Ultimate. So the other nice thing with that program is there's a download feature. And so you could download a video directly from YouTube. And then you can also choose the resolution. And if you're going to work in Elan, you should be choosing like 480. So something pretty low resolution, or else it's going to just bog your computer down trying to do like a high definition video. Like you don't need it to be high definition to work on the Elan files, I don't think.
Can I ask a quick question? Just to get us started for our next class. How about if we were gonna say like ʼatudli.átk, and then like a verb for whatever we want to learn. What's a sentence construction? Like, what would that third verb look like after ʼatudli.átk?
Yeah. So it could be sort of a noun form of the verb if you wanted to, like ʼatudli.átk we ʻatyahay katuchuhiti an katushiti attin. So I want to learn how to make pictures with the camera. And so you could say ade verbiye type of thing as well. Ade janiye we uski washin. Like I want to learn how to work on small motors. I got this real old snowblower, but I was like, I can't get that thing to work. It's got like 1 million knobs and levers on it. I was like, I don't know what any of them do. It's leaking gas. But yeah, that's what I would say. Yeah, so good question.
Ms. Chish.
I have a question about the Suzie Jimmy thing again.
Oh yeah, which one?
Okay, so we're on is it number 7? Well, they keep saying "da" at the beginning of a sentence, and it's almost like it doesn't change the meaning of the sentence, but I don't know how to tell the kids what it means. You want me to show you?
Yeah.
Okay, share screen. That one. Number 6. So down a little, and in this particular recording, she does it like 5 or 6. She does it 5 or 6 times. Look at line 39. Da neska. And right here, 43. Da isahu shadach kayedete. Da one yede nate isahu. Da one yedete. No, da one yede nate isahu. Well, all this translation is guesswork by my students.
Oh, yeah, okay.
So but da stumped me. I don't know what to tell them. Da slagao dane Jimmy. It's ever heard of that?
Glass?
Let's listen to it.
Do I have to release the share?
I could take it from you.
Okay. Oh, I could stop share.
Okay. Let me open the thing. Which one? Number 6, you said?
Yeah.
Let's see. I think this is the most recent one. Oh, too big. Like this one here?
Yeah, that's one of them. Yeah. That should be a high tone da there.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's probably closer than what my guys said.
Let me find another one. Yeah, it does. It is da, right?
Yes, definitely it's high tone da.
Oh, this is on. Slowed down. Hold on.
So I thought she was telling him to put his hat on the wall, but only because that's what he did.
Mm-hmm. Huh. What do you folks think? What's going on with this da?
He needs a sa.
Well,
No, it's high tone.
I don't think it's the question one. I wonder if it's like just grabbing the end of something like hada or hatla.
Yeah. Well, that's what it seems like because it doesn't change the meaning of what's going on.
Yeah.
Okay.
One of my students guessed, does it mean now? Now take your hat off. Now louder or something. Da slagaudane. Da slagaudane, Jimmy. High tone K.
Oh, high tone da. Anybody else got any thoughts on da?
Is it weasel?
Is she calling him a weasel? But I think that's low tone also, da.
No, that one's high. But
is it? Okay.
I almost would probably consider translating it as like, hey, right? I mean,
yeah, it is sort of like bossy and disrespectful.
Well, it's sort of like maybe, yeah. So maybe it's sort of along the lines like just getting attention. Like there's another one, nay, which you hear in some of the stories, and we usually translate that one as hey as well.
Interesting.
Yeah, so that's one where it might, but I don't know. We can ask.
Okay.
But yeah, it's all over the place, isn't it?
Yes.
Oh, these aren't linked either. Okay. So these Elan files are there too, if anybody wants to go in there and mess around with these. I think I sent the links to these ones to everybody. Students worked on these ones probably quite a ways back.
I'm gonna try to do that. But I just been overwhelmed, just trying to keep up with my students.
No, this
But I
was
think that's a great idea.
4 years ago, because it'd be fun to get these kind of in pretty good shape so that we can re-upload them with the subtitles on if we wanted to. I don't think anybody like technically owns these. I think SHI has them up, and I think some school tube has them up. Like the state of Alaska, their archives, they're the ones who I think brought it to my attention, or maybe it was Zach Jones. It was about 6 years ago, I think, that I first saw them.
I first saw them about 40 years ago at the SNEP program. They had one of those gigantic players, and the actual recording was in a gigantic cassette. And there
Really?
was, yeah, huge cassettes. And you'd put it in, it was like a modern day, well, you know, like portable TV. But instead of a VCR, it had this big slot and a little fuzzy screen. But it was really cool back then.
Wow.
Could it be, why don't you take your hat off?
That could be.
Whoa, yeah. Well, DASA is what? Couldn't it be interpreted as a suggestion?
Yeah.
A bossy suggestion?
If it was the da sa, it seems like it would need a sa in there.
Yeah.
And that it would change to dot if anything came in between the da and the sa.
Right. Oh, that's right. And it wouldn't be something like please, because that, what the heck does that mean?
Yeah, right. Da, ach, itnach. Yeah, it's a good question to ask. Keep asking some speakers, see if we can sort of fine tune that. I'll see if Nakashan can look at it with, he works with Kakashat a lot. And since that's her siblings, she might have a closer idea on how they're using that too.
That would be lovely.
Okay. Yeah, so those ones are in there. You could just, especially if you open one of these files, like if I give a file to you to work on, there's a couple different ways this could go. I could give you one and then you're working on that file. Another way to do it is you open it and do a save as. That way, whatever you do to it, it doesn't alter the original, which is probably the way I'd prefer. But then you could just sort of feel free to, and you could download it on your own computer too, and then that way you're just working on that file. And these ones were worked on by students, so there'll probably be quite a few different things that are in there. Oh,
I
yeah.
have a question.
Okay.
I think the ownership of stories like the ones we heard today, where we give credit to the people that own it, we know that they own it. But then a lot of this work has either been recorded or published. So what does that do to the ownership where people can read it or use it in class or whatever? Is there, have you thought about that in regard
Yeah. It's a really good question, and it's probably one of the reasons. One of the times Nora said to me, yeah, I was kind of thanking her for all the work she did with recording these elders and translating all this stuff. And one time she said, I wish I'd never done it. Yeah, and it kind of caught me off guard, and I think about it because I know some people are going to criticize using it as a study tool, sharing it. and it's an interesting sort of question to think about too. Like, why would they share these stories with us, and what do we do if so much of it is sliding through our fingers? So for me, it becomes a bit of a question in terms of, it feels like a long time ago, everybody knew so many of these stories. Like ʼatudli.átk is used in so many different areas in so many different ways. And that's a Taukanadi story as well. And so it's a question for us to sort of examine as a language teaching and learning and using community. I think my general rule is, I tell people, like, don't go telling this in public, because now you don't have the right to go tell that story. But can we use these stories as teaching tools, and can we study them and listen to them? Because I don't think the right answer is to lock them away and to sort of put them in the vault for the clan. I understand the sort of fear that everything's going to get taken or people are going to misuse things. But I don't think we're at a critical mass where we have enough people who understand these, who know these stories, or who, I would venture to guess that the percentage of people within a clan who don't know their own clan stories is pretty significant and pretty scary when we really boil down to it. So like when Nora did go and do this work, like there was a lot of hesitancy on the elders' parts to say some of those things. But I think as they witnessed like the transition to losing our language, I think that they talked about, like, that's why they say is because they could see what was going on, and they could see like loss. And so to mitigate the loss, you sort of begin to make some exceptions. And so what we're trying to do is use these. And so the Raven stories, you can pull back to those, and those are pretty wide open, I think. Although there's some yekutis and some other things in those stories. But it is a really good question. Like we listened to the Glacier Bay story, but when they hit some of those cry songs, we stopped it. Yeah, and so maybe we could have in this one too, but it's a really good question.
Could I offer a thought?
Uh-huh.
So I started thinking, I've thought about this for many years, because there's so much wonderful information and knowledge and social teaching in all of the stories and the legends and the histories and the migrations. And I mean, this is world history in one sense. And in another sense, how are we going to know each other if we don't learn each other's stories? And so it's not like we can't know them, because we all live together, where our roots are together. And so if we're all put in a little box, we're separated, and we're not living in a community house anymore. So, and I have always been supported in using traditional knowledge in education. I've not been criticized for bringing knowledge out as education. It's where you get in trouble is you try to get into the spiritual aspect or the ceremonial aspect, and plus there's things you have to make sure that you identify what clan the story's from and who told you the story, and the person that told them the story, the genealogy of the history of the story. That is important, because that's how they did it long ago. And one last thing I wanted to mention is that the more I listen to different versions of the same person telling the same story, I realize that they're telling it like a tape recorder, because that's how they learned it. They learned it around the campfire, around the fire pit, in the house, in the community house, and they heard it told over and over again through their growing up years. And it was the same. And if it wasn't the same, they were corrected. And that's how they kept it steady for thousands of years, some of those stories.
Okay.
I think that some of the younger generation are quite outspoken about some of these stories. You can't tell this story because it doesn't belong to you. But my fear is that if we don't tell the stories and if we don't pass it on, it's going to die. And I think if we try to tell the story on honest, we have really good memory, but give credit. I think the stories for Glacier Bay by Amy and Suzie was, if you read it word for word, and give them credit, I don't see why we can't do it. I think that is important stories that were passed on to me when I was young, and these are true Canadian stories. But it was my dad who who made sure that we knew the stories that were told about Glacier Bay. So I'm not against using these written stories or recorded, but I did kind of wonder, once it's published or once it's recorded, can we go ahead and use it? But I think we should stick to the script, what is in the books. I think Nora did a wonderful job on getting the collection. And that's one thing we should watch for.
Yeah, well, because for me, it comes back to a couple of things. Like, we can only learn so much from Humpty Dumpty. So like if we're just going to use like tlingit because it's getting too sensitive, then I think we're not going to have an accurate way to speak our language. And I think how many people could tell stories like Jukateen just did, and like Mrs. Demert just did. Not very many, maybe one or two or three. And so we have to build ourselves up. We have to restock the cupboard in terms of what we have. And so these are, but they're good conversations to have, because I did have somebody who said, you need to take that down. That can't be up there. And I said, well, I talked to the elder and I told him what I was going to do with it. And talk to them. Talk to the elder then. You go tell him that he shouldn't do that. And then tell me what he says. Because if he agrees, then okay, sure. But for me, sometimes it'll come down to like, what kind of, maybe there's some things we don't put subtitles up for. But if it's just in Tlingit, it's got that full encryption. So we just sort of say, okay, the subtitles for this one, we'll just keep those in-house. And so, but those are good conversations to have. And if it starts spinning out of control, if someone is getting paid to tell stories and they go and tell some story that doesn't belong to them, then I think we have a right to go talk to them and say, hey, no. And so, but it's an interesting line, because I get paid to teach and I use some of these stories, but I use the recording of the folks telling them. But then we'll start to practice it too, because I think there's so much we gain from it in terms of what they're doing. Just being able to sort of retell those stories and to tell them accurately. Because I think those are the things that Nora saw and others, Forrest DeWitt and Rosita Whirl and Johnny Marks and others who started documenting these stories. Frederica de Laguna this stuff's gonna all get lost. And so to keep it from getting lost, we're gonna put it to use. But it's good to talk about it too, so it's not just gay, it's not just any old way. But good stuff, folks. Wooch. Wednesday, you're gonna share something you wish you knew how to do, and then we'll move back into some sort of midweek lesson. We'll see we're gonna pick up the future again, and then keep going from there. Sheesh.
Sheesh.
One, Sir Gunnan.
Ah.
Sheesh. Ziagan.
Okay, sheesh.
Sheesh.
Ah.